if you have a guaranteed basic income program and expanded job programs, how are you going to pay for it? And isn't expending all this money going to be inflationary? Well, let's start with inflation first. Inflation is when there's insufficient resources, human and material resources, to meet effective demand. Now, effective demand means that people have money to spend on the things that they need and want. And I don't think this is a case of not having sufficient resources. I think it's a case in our society that we maldistribute resources to the wrong needs. Right now, with the vast gap between the very, very wealthy and most of the rest of us, resources are being utilized in order to fulfill the needs of billionaires, or the wants of billionaires, I should say. For example, we could use money now devoted to creating spaceships to give joyrides to billionaires towards helping people that are disabled and not able to work, or people that don't have jobs, and that when there's socially beneficial work that still needs to be done. So it's a shifting of resources, not necessarily adding to greater demand for those resources. With that in mind, how do you pay for these programs? First of all, through taxation. And here I would go back to a previous program where I said that private property cannot be justified unless there is some kind of provision that everybody's right to have access to enough of the natural goods of the world to survive is fulfilled by something like a basic income. So the very wealthy should be the ones that bear the heaviest burden of taxation in order to fund these programs, particularly a basic income. I think we should have a wealth tax. I think we should reverse the tax decreases that happened under the Trump, Bush, and Reagan administration, and clean up the tax code so it falls more on the very wealthy and less on the rest of the taxpayers in order to pay for basic incomes and job programs. There's also government spending that could be shifted from some areas to other areas, again, not requiring more resources, just redirecting the resources we have to different uses. There's a lot of places where people could point and say, well, this is a wasteful government program or not as important as the ones that we could be doing. And my largest candidate, my largest target would be simply all the money we spent on these feudal wars abroad and this oversized military who has a extremely large carbon footprint contributing to climate change. So let's shift some spending from those areas to the areas that I'm mentioning in this program, that I'm recommending in this program. And finally, the banking system is constantly creating new money for the purpose of stimulating the economy and facilitating the needs of business and consumers. Now, what about shifting some of that money from the way the banking system is currently targeting that money through the business sector and giving people who already have wealth the ability to get loans, low-cost loans, shifting that towards meeting needs as through a basic income. Now, that may sound inflationary, but I have a very intriguing recommendation of a book. I saw a speech from Italian economist Marco Dondi, drawn from his new book, Outgrowing Capitalism, Rethinking Money to Reshape Society and Pursue Purpose, in which he writes about using the banking system's money creation power to fund a guaranteed basic income. That book is going to be released this November. I have a copy on order and am excited about reading it and hope maybe I can get Dondi on this show for an interview to talk about his ideas. So that's it. That's how I would find the money to spend on these programs and why I don't think it would be inflationary. Of course, there's a lot of detail that could be added, but that's for another time and another place in the future.